Box 8690, Derby, DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter, it seems.
This is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of... they had three chances to kind of take action. Now, the employer has to should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation.
So it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route.
OK.
And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it at, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset.
There was a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out. Because
exactly. They had turfs on the...
turfs. GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight...
We've said we'll right that injustice, and within the 5 years of the Labour government, we will compensate them for the money that they've lost. This is their money that they've had stolen off them, and it's completely unacceptable.
I think it's completely unfair, and I want to keep fighting for a fair deal for the WASPI women.
Labour has betrayed the WASPI women.
Real injustice, and we need to do something about it, Carol, because that wasn't the base upon which you paid in, that wasn't the basis upon which you were working. We've got a government that has basically put its fingers in its ears.
Has Keir Starmer lied his way into Downing Street? Also,
تقوم في بلدية ويستمنستر حاليا بتغيير طريقة عمل الإسكان الاجتماعي. نهدف إلى جعل طريقة العمل أكثر شفافية ومساعدة الأشخاص
took the words right out of my mouth. Labour advertises council houses for people who can't speak English. What an absolute joke that is. Plus...
Inflation numbers today show inflation at 2.6%. That is comparable to other countries around the world.
Yeah, Rachel Reeves has actually tanked the economy. Inflation is up, and a major shoe franchise has closed its stores and directly blamed her budget. Also...
Naive judges with our completely broken human rights laws have given this man a right to live in the UK.
The Shadow Justice Minister, Robert Jenrick, discusses many things, including a Turkish crime boss being the latest to be allowed to stay in Britain because of the ECHR and... Up the workers. There'll be more train strikes over the festive period. Will you be affected? On my panel tonight is the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster extraordinaire Nina Mishkov. Oh, and can you tell me, please, what happens next here? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Stop giving council houses to migrants who can't speak English. Next.
Good evening, it's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Joe Casper in the GB newsroom. So your top story tonight, Sir Keir Starmer has today held a call with US President-elect Donald Trump. The Prime Minister's spokesman said both men agreed on their joint ambition to strengthen the close and historic relationship between the UK and the US. Mr Starmer and Mr Trump reiterated the need for allies to stand together with Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. The Prime Minister also emphasised the importance of securing peace in the Middle East. Pleas of not guilty have been entered on behalf of Axel Ruder-Cabana after he failed to reply when arraigned at Liverpool Crown Court on 3 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder following the deaths of 3 young girls in a knife attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport. Ruder-Cabana appeared via video link in court as pleas of not guilty were entered to all 16 counts of the indictment. It comes as a police report published today found that officers were unprepared for the scale of the summer riots which followed the Southport attacks. The Prime Minister has been accused of playing politics with the WASPI women by the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch. Sir Keir Starmer is now facing mounting pressure to give MPs a vote on his government's decision to rule out compensation for women affected by changes to the state pension age. He defended his position during Prime Minister's questions earlier today.
It is a serious issue. It's a complex issue. The research, as he knows, shows that 90% of those impacted knew about the changes that were taking place. And I'm afraid to say the taxpayer simply can't afford the tens of billions of pounds in compensation when the evidence does show that 90% of those impacted did know about it. That's because of the state of our economy.
UK inflation has risen to its highest level since March, according to official figures. The Office for National Statistics said it increased to 2.6% in November, up from 2.3% the previous month. It is the highest rate since March and the second rise in 2 months. The figures come ahead of the Bank of England's latest decision on interest rates, which is tomorrow. The ONS's chief economist said the rise was driven by an increase in petrol prices. And finally, Prince Andrew will not attend the pre-Christmas lunch hosted by the King at Buckingham Palace tomorrow after speaking to Sarah, Duchess of York, GBNews understands. It's thought Sarah Ferguson advised her ex-husband not to attend following the alleged Chinese spy scandal, as first reported in the Daily Mail. The King's brother has already pulled out of attending the royal Christmas gathering at Sandringham over Christmas. Those are your latest headlines. For now, I'm Joe Casper. More from me in an hour. Now, back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. Council houses in Britain should go to British people first. Brits should be at the top of the queue. Social housing should not be going to people who can't speak a word of English and who clearly haven't integrated. British taxpayers are right to feel like they're at the back of the queue, being asked to pay for everybody else who's gone before them. Step forward, Westminster Council, who released this video to tell people about changes to social housing. Just tell me what you noticed here.
نقوم في بلدية ويستمنستر حالياً بتغيير طريقة عمل الإسكان الاجتماعي.
আমরা আপনারা জানাতাম স্যার যে ওয়েস্টমিনস্টার কাউন্সিল আমরা হাউজিং রেজিস্টার সিস্টেমরে বদলাইতাম আপনারা লাগি সহজ করবার লাগি
Nous changeons la manière dont nous attribuons les logements sociaux à Westminster.
What does that tell you about the people who are getting social housing in Britain right now? They're not British, are they? The average rent in Westminster is apparently £3,154 a month. You probably couldn't afford to live there, who can really? But you are paying for it. You're paying for foreign nationals who can't speak a word of English to live there. 48% of all social housing in London is taken up by foreign nationals. 72% of Somalis in Britain live in social housing. That's 4 times higher than the wider population. This has been going on for years. A Somali family on benefits were handed a £2 million luxury house in Islington back in 2017. At the time, it would have cost £6,000 a month to rent that. They got it with welfare for £1,000. Labour's Westminster Council actually deleted that video that I just showed you there. They say it's because it didn't convey their ideal message. I actually think it did. They care more about people who can't speak English than they do about hard-working taxpayers. And what about veterans? Veteran homelessness rose by 14% last year. Apparently, there are more than 2,000 homeless servicemen and women right now. We could house them overnight if we wanted to, but no. We should be prioritising people like this. A Sudanese refugee family who has lived in Britain for 5 years were complaining about having to move accommodation. Do you know how they expressed their concern? Through the medium of their 9-year-old son, who they had to use as an interpreter because presumably they can't speak English. 5 years they've been here. Guess what? We are, well, we're going to get a lot more of this, aren't we? Because Angela Rayner ditched plans to prioritise British nationals for social housing. Oh, and in other news that's broken in the past hour, now, try not to scream too much at your television, Britain is now the Western capital for Sharia courts. We now have 85 Sharia courts, which I think is just another example of how integration is failing. More on the old Sharia court saga later in the show. I've said it before, I'll say it again. When Labour tell you that you can't oppose housing developments in your village or town and they want to build their 1.5 million homes, what they're not telling you is who they're going to put in those homes. Let's get a thought on my panel this evening. We have got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist, Adam Brooks, and we've also got broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Yeah, so a bit tone deaf, do you think, Mark, advertising changes to social housing in a catalogue of different languages?
Completely tone deaf, and there's so many things wrong here. I think we've got to unpack them. I mean, I think it actually shows one of the great benefits of social media isn't just that we can discuss different ideas on it. It trips people up when they do something stupid. They realised, you know, once they posted this, that this was going to go down like a cup of cold sick, basically. We've discussed on this show before, you know, how we should deal with languages. My view is I don't think you necessarily need to be forced to speak English, but if you can't, the interpreter and the costs of that should be wholly on you. So we should be English only for English public housing requirements. But then the second bit, Patrick, and this is a wider issue, is the sheer cost of the social housing that we're offering. Yeah. I mean, what next? We're going to say, you know, would Sir like a sea view? You know, do you want to be somewhere, you know, close and proximate to leisure facilities, as if you're offering a hotel? I think it should be much more minimal, whoever you're housing, at the taxpayer's cost, not these sort of £3,000 a month rent in Westminster.
I like what you said there, as if we're offering a hotel.
Yeah, we are offering a hotel. But these are actually houses. Yeah. We're talking, if you can't get the hotel, then you have to make do with a house in Islington.
A £2 million townhouse in Islington. Exactly. And it says to me, so 48%, I don't want to be too London-centric. The only reason I'm using this figure is because it's relevant in this case, right? But basically, half of social housing in our capital city is taken up by foreign nationals. I think we've got plenty of people who are British nationals who could probably be living there instead.
I've just done a bit of Christmas shopping, Oxford Street, and it doesn't look like England anymore. And that's not me being racist, or that is me observing. This country, especially London, is changing rapidly, and that is down to mass immigration. To have 48% of our social housing by foreign-born people is letting down the native people of this country. There are people in my district, I know people that their kids are in their 20s. They're putting their kids up because their kids are on a waiting list for social housing. We are letting these people down. The money's, you know, our taxpayers' money is going down like a sieve. You know, it's being washed away by these foreigners coming here and gaming our system. I'm really shocked, and I'm really pessimistic about the future under the Labour government. Because as you said, Angela Rayner removed the requirement to live here 10 years, was it, before you could get social housing. Why would they do that when they know it's such a problem?
Yeah.
Well, the future for the next generations in this country is very bleak.
You know, I think people can tolerate certain cultural changes or, you know, physical changes and all of that kind of stuff in their area. It sticks in the craw when you realise you're paying for it as well. And that's clearly what we're doing here. We're paying for people to come and live and have a house.
If you mentioned that it's Westminster and it's an expensive area. Now, if there is social housing in Westminster, which there is, it doesn't matter who goes into it. It really doesn't. If you fit the criteria and you're say given 5 years residency, then you are a human being and you can apply. And it's such hypocrisy that we English, British people, should complain about foreigners not speaking our language. We are the laziest nation in the world at speaking anything other than English.
See, it's an interesting point, that, because it's a point that I've made before. I occasionally joke. I'm terrible with other languages, terrible.
Same.
When I go abroad, I can ask for the bill and whatever. I can't even ask for a
You're
pint.
contributing.
I'm allowed to drink. But I'm paying my way, Nina.
And how do you know? How do you know?
Well, because they're living in social housing. We're by definition. They're not.
Yes, but they could have they could have jobs. They really could have jobs.
Well, then why are they living?
Well, then they should be in private housing.
Well, if they, that's not necessarily the case. You sometimes can't afford the
So they're being
private
subsidised
housing.
by the taxpayer.
They're being subsidised. But the thing is, on that video, you showed two kind of Middle Eastern languages, and you also showed French. There was also Spanish.
Spanish as well, yeah.
Now, do you oppose the Spanish being here or the French being here?
It's not about whether they're here. It's what languages are we going to use.
No.
So I'm heading off to Tenerife tomorrow.
Right.
My Spanish is pretty ropey, but I'm paying for my own hotel.
Yeah.
Like Patrick, I'll pay my way.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm
You're on
trying to pick
holiday.
up a bit of Spanish, but I'm not expecting anything from the government of Tenerife.
No,
other than to use my money to fuel their economy.
If you went to live in, say, Madrid, which is equivalent to London and obviously has expensive
I would
areas,
try and learn
has
Spanish.
You would try and learn
Spanish. The taxpayers pay for his house either.
Yeah.
But you would be perfectly entitled to that. In France, for instance, in Paris, they have 25% of the population live in social housing, and they do this deliberately so they have middle and lower class people who to diversify, to populate the area so that it is more diverse, so that people can integrate. Now, you don't want, because otherwise Westminster, very well, Westminster is a rich ghetto.
Right.
It's much better. Okay. And also, Adam, you said you were shocked. What I'm shocked at is you saying you walked down Oxford Street and it didn't look like England. What is England supposed to look like?
Well, I was one of very few white faces walking down Oxford Street.
And what's the problem with that?
No, there is no problem with that, Nina. And again, I know what you're trying to do to paint me as racist, but this is an 84% white country.
You are the only person who's used the word racist.
So
how very fascinating that is.
What are you leaning to? This is
I'm just asking you a question.
White country. So the demographic of Britain is 84% white.
Yes,
so
but London is different.
No, I've mentioned...
London is diverse,
I've
which is why I live here.
Whitechapel on this programme before, and it upset a few people, but I can walk from one end of Whitechapel to the other end, and I might not hear one person speaking English. It's lack of integration.
And that's what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
But the other aspect
Nothing wrong with it.
Seriously, is that's one thing in itself. But if you then look at some of the statistics when it comes to social housing, there is also a good chance, Adam, that your taxpayers' money is going for quite a large number of those people to live in social housing. And that's the double whammy,
Patrick,
isn't it?
some of them are getting two-bedroom apartments or houses for £677 a month. Someone could, our kids could dream of that. Living in central London for £677 per month. What a touch. We are being gamed severely.
Isn't that the key thing here? That for highly expensive properties should be a private sector matter. I mean, I can imagine some exceptions. Somebody who needs social housing, their entire family and support base happens to be uniquely based in Westminster. OK, maybe you need to put them up in Westminster. But I actually think that insofar as we're offering people housing, we should find basically cheap and affordable housing for them. Not Mayfair or Westminster or Chelsea. These colossally expensive.
But granted that there is social housing in Westminster, granted that there is social housing in Westminster, it should be utilised.
Well, I'd encourage the tenants to buy it.
Should you say it shouldn't be?
I'd have much easier for the tenants to buy the property.
Patrick, I've spoken to a whistleblower before in a housing charity, and a lot of these migrants are foreign-born, kick off so aggressively if they're tried to be housed outside of London. and they threaten. And a lot of the times, these authorities or these charities back down and put them in London.
This is pure hearsay.
They know what they want.
This is not a,
he's claiming he's got
study.
So we'll have to take that face value, to be fair. And there are, I think, situations when you look at the homeless veterans. Now, OK, there can be multiple different issues with certain people who've maybe got issues as a result of their service. We all understand what those can be: mental health issues, PTSD, and some of the things that they can lead to. And I understand that not every single one of those people leads the kind of life where realistically you could put them in social housing. However, the vast majority of them will. And when I saw that video, I thought they obviously felt confident enough to put it out before they withdrew it. And I thought, well, what's every council really doing now? When you look around your local area, it does, for me, it begs the question: are we seriously in every council across the country now willing to accommodate in large numbers people who have not learned English? And you look at the case that the BBC ran earlier, a chap who lived here from Sudan 5 years. 5 years, somebody used their 9-year-old son as an interpreter. It doesn't scream integration, but we are off to a lively start. Thank you very much, everybody. Westminster Council has got back to us. They said, we took the video down because it did not convey the message we wanted it to. They added, the council complies with the national criteria for allocating council homes to our local residents, prioritising those with the greatest need. We provide translations into commonly spoken languages to ensure anyone entitled to apply for social housing is able to understand and follow the process. So make of that what you will. But yes, here we go. It is time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway. No, it's not a council house in Westminster this year. It's your chance to win £50,000 in cold, hard, tax-free cash. Here's how you can win it.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. Big story coming your way. Do you remember this?
I've been joining them and fighting to try and get this changed. I think it's completely unfair, and I want to keep fighting for a fair deal for the WASPI women.
Now, the story there is not that Yvette Cooper has miraculously changed her accent over the course of the years. No, it's the fact that that was a lie. The government has performed yet another screeching U-turn by announcing that the WASPI women won't get a single penny in compensation. So is this yet another Labour betrayal? Coordinator for the Newcastle WASPI Women Group, Christys Smith, is absolutely fuming, and she joins me live very soon. But up next, inflation rose to 2.6% today, the highest since March, and economists are pointing the finger at the Labour budget. But they're not the only ones. High street retailer Shoe Zone directly blamed the government for its decision today to shut stores. So has Labour tanked the economy? We're going to have a big debate on that very, very soon, so stay tuned.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's about Generation Z spending 6 hours a day online. Generation Z, which age group is that?
16 to 24.
OK, great.
Now, this could explain why there's 1 million young people aged between 16 and 24.
100%.
Not working.
Work.
Yeah.
And I did a TV show and we're talking about it, and the lefty person I was on with was making excuses for the fact that we've got 9 million people unemployed. And this woman, this mom, rang in and she was hilarious. And I thought she was going to have a go at me. She said, Carol Malone. I thought, here we go, another one. And she goes, you are absolutely right. She said, I've just thrown my son out of the house, who's 24. She said, my husband and I, she said, we worked all our lives, 2 jobs, to get him to college, to get him to a private school. Yeah. She said, he hasn't worked a day.
No.
And his attitude was, why should I? And you think, and she said he spends all day online.
On his phone.
That's all he's
Because
doing.
we would have gone to get a job because we were bored. And the trouble is, Jonathan, the younger generation are never, ever bored because the algorithms keep them stimulated.
Well, the dopamine hits keep coming. I think it's actually a problem for all of us. Yeah. Now for anyone, if you just have a moment to yourself, a lot of people of all ages, what do we reach for? We reach for our phones, particularly for those. Obviously, if we're with a friend, we'll talk to them.
Your age group, you're not talking about...
Well, I know that. I've spoken to a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s who also will just, if they have a free month on the tube or whatever, they'll just look at their phone and read. And it's actually terrifying because on the iPhone every Monday it tells you how much time you spent on your phone the previous week, and it's
much for you? On average per day?
Fair few hours. I mean, a lot of that will be work.
What's a ballpark? Oh, more than 5?
Occasionally 5. Yeah.
Well, better things to do. Spending 6 hours a day.
Do you never read a book? Well, that'll be at night time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Coming up, has this Labour government betrayed the WASPI women? But first, have they tanked the economy? It's time now for our head-to-head. So, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride has today warned that Britain can't afford Labour after inflation jumped from 2.3% in October to 2.6% this month, its highest level since March. Economists have blamed Rachel Reeves' £40 billion tax raiding budget for the rise. Not that the Prime Minister Keir Starmer seems to care. Speaking in Estonia yesterday, he tried to reassure businesses.
Let me give this reassurance, because we had to stabilise the economy and deal with a £22 billion black hole this time around, and that required us to make tough and difficult decisions in relation to both tax and spend. But when the Chancellor says we're not going to go through that sort of budget again, she's right about that, and that's why I can say and give reassurance in relation to tax that I know that individuals, families and businesses want the certainty of knowing that the tax regime is not going to change very much.
Given the fact that he appears to have lied about several other things already, do you believe that? Do you feel reassured? Well, that certainly won't help the high street retailer Shoe Zone, which today directly blamed Rachel Reeves' hike in employers' national insurance for its decision to close stores across the UK. In a statement, the company said that since the October budget, significant additional costs have been piled onto retailers, adding to already weakened customer confidence. So tonight I am asking, has the government well and truly tanked the economy? Going head-to-head on this now, our former Labour advisor Kevin Mayer and head of lifestyle economics at the Institute of Economic Affairs, it's Chris Snowdon. Chaps, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Chris, have Labour tanked the economy?
Quite possibly, Patrick, yes. Economic forecasting is never an exact science, and I'm not going to make any firm forecasts. I'm not going to get too worried either about 2.6% inflation. I don't think inflation is going to be a major problem in the next year or two. And I'm not going to get overly worried about 2 months of negative growth. But I think these are worrying signs, particularly the growth. You're not going to get growth if you raise taxes a lot and if you don't deregulate. And what the Labour government have done so far is to raise taxes to give pay rises to the public sector. Primarily, they're not deregulating. They are bringing in more regulation, things like Martin's Law, the tobacco and vapes bill, and the football regulator, and on it goes. We've got corporation tax at a relatively high rate. We've got very high minimum wage and the increase in employers' national insurance, all of which, particularly the last of those two, the minimum wage hike and the national insurance hike, are really causing problems with businesses. We got business confidence very low. We got private sector employment contracting at the highest rate for 4 years. It seems to me, as much as I would like to find something to be optimistic about for 2025, I think we are heading towards a downturn, let's put it that way.
OK, all right, Kevin, same question to you. Is this not a sign that Labour are tanking the economy, the kind of budget that could only be put forward by a woman who stands accused of lying on her CV?
Oh, that's a bit loaded. Look, I mean, the fact is, Rachel Reeves has inherited an economy with some big fundamental problems. I agree actually with a lot of what Chris has just said there, which might be a bit counterintuitive. But some of those pay awards that we've seen, some of those were recommended by pay award bodies before this government was even elected. So they've inherited a situation where the public finances are not in great shape. Rachel Reeves is very fond of talking about this £22 billion black hole in day-to-day spending this year. She's very angry about it, simply because a lot of this was not foreseen from before the general election. A quarter of that 22 billion quid, for example, is going on paying for all the immigration and asylum mess, all the hotels and all the rest of it that the previous government left in their wake back in July. So there's some deep problems in the economy that she's had to deal with. She's had to take some very tough, very unpopular decisions, and those carry on even today, and I'm sure in weeks and months to come as well. But unless you get those foundations right, we're building on quicksand.
All right, Chris, look, the £22 billion black hole thing, I mean, I'm pretty sure you could turn Starmer off and on again, and he'd still, that's his default response to everything. It's 22 billion, but 20 billion. Is that true? Go on, Chris. Go on, Chris. Is it true? How much is there? Because if we've got a £22 billion black hole, we've just spent £22 billion on Ed Miliband's carbon capture up north, haven't we? So talk me through it, Chris. Is it real?
Not really, no. I think it is true to say that Jeremy Hunt in the last government deliberately left the public finances in a pretty precarious position. He wanted to bring in that national insurance cut in an attempt to win the election. Obviously didn't work, but he was skating on very thin ice in terms of the public finances. Whether it's £22 billion or not, I don't think it is. I think that the black hole, such as it is, has been largely created by Labour's ongoing spending commitments, things like paying off the train drivers and the doctors and the nurses and the green energy projects that you mentioned. As far as I'm concerned, the black hole is a deficit, which is £100 billion or so. That's the real black hole. And what we're seeing under this government and the previous ones is, endless borrowing. And under Rachel Reeves' so-called new rules, we're seeing even more of that. And that is going to be another drag on growth, because we're now paying about £100 billion a year just in debt interest payments. That is money you're taking out of the economy and essentially burning, and no one is trying to address that.
Well, OK, and Kevin as well, some of the spending commitments that we've had, £11.6 billion pounds in things like climate reparations, the 22 billion quid I mentioned on Ed Miliband's carbon capture in the northeast. I mean, that makes the 61 million quid we've just given to a bunch of Syrian terrorists like a drop in the ocean. But, when you look at it there, the only people happy under this Labour regime so far appear to be train drivers and possibly some Syrian jihadis. So why is it that businesses are shutting down and blaming the budget?
Well, again, it comes back to these very tough decisions that Rachel Reeves has had to make to balance the public finances. That £22 billion, these are Treasury figures backed up by the OBR as well. So I think we can vouch that they are accurate. And as I say, a lot of it is around the shambles that she inherited. It's a bit like Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves went out for a night out and came back home, and their teenage children kind of crashed and wrecked the house. And you've got the wallpaper coming off, and you've got some...
To which he'd have to apologise to Lord Ali, wouldn't it?
You've got some teenager puking up in the koi carp pond outside and you pull up on the driveway. The last government, frankly, have just left a scorched earth policy. And I agree very much with Chris on that point, at least. And to put all this right at a time when We've got global economic headwinds. You know, we've got the situation in America, China slowing down, the Eurozone is in a bad place, and all the rest of it. You know, this is not an ideal time to kind of do some of the measures that she's had to do, but she has had to do them. The growth forecast for this year is not great. You know, we've got the lowest rate of new vacancies, I think, in 3 years, reported earlier this week. But looking ahead to 2025, 2026, there are indications from the budget, from the Office of Budget Responsibility, that growth will return.
Well, both of you, thank you very much. Thoroughly enjoyed that, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners will have done as well. That's former Labour advisor Kevin Mayer and the head of lifestyle economics at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Chris Snowdon. Take care. Now, let me know your thoughts to that as well. You can get in touch with us on your say, etc. And before we go, by the way, I'm really looking forward to my next segment, all right? This is an incredibly worked-up, waspy woman, and she has every right to be because she's been betrayed. But before that, during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we are hearing from church ministers across the country. Each day, they have a very special message for you to help celebrate this Christmas season.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 18.
Hi, I'm Richard England, Vicar of Crofton Parish. I wonder how good you are at asking for help. Some of us find it quite hard. We take pride in doing things ourselves, even if it takes longer or proves unsuccessful. Asking for help seems like weakness. The Christmas story, though, is God coming to help us, to redeem us and our world from the mess that we've got ourselves into. But in order to acknowledge that, to recognize that, it means we have to be honest that we might need help. Christmas story says that help is here and hope has come, but it offers us a question and a challenge. Are we willing to ask for the help that we have been given?
Lovely stuff. Well, make sure that you go to gbnews.com/advent where you can see all of those messages. Merry Christmas, everybody. Coming up, prepare for travel chaos, though, over the festive period, because Avanti West Coast train managers announced today that they'll go on strike on New Year's Eve and January the 2nd. Keir Starmer, of course, handed power to the unions by scrapping Tory anti-strike legislation. So, are these really Starmer's strikes? Trade unionist Andy Twelves joins me soon, but first.
I've been joining them and fighting to try and get this changed. I think it's completely unfair, and I want to keep fighting for a fair deal for the WASPI women.
If you're listening on radio, that is Yvette Cooper. I know she has changed her voice over the years. Well, it turns out that was a lie. The government has performed yet another screeching U-turn. I am about to talk to a, well, rightly irate WASPI woman. Stay tuned.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, we'll see cloud clearing the southeast, leaving a day of sunny spells and showers. It is going to be feeling much colder than it has done of late, though. To start off, though, to end on Wednesday, we'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain just move their way across the far south of the country. Colder to the far north, though, as we head into the evening. Still plenty of blustery showers reaching northwestern areas. A few feeding in inland at times where the likely fall is showers just moving into parts of Wales in the southwest, and a very cold start to the day, particularly in those brisk northerly winds. So around across Scotland to start on Thursday, still we'll see plenty of showers around those coastal areas, and as they do move in further inland, they're likely to fall as snow across higher ground. Similar across Northern Ireland, still a chance we could see some wintry flurries around hilly areas and just to the northwest of England too. Even across Wales and parts of the southwest, a chance we could see some winteriness in the showers over hilly areas. The driest and brightest of the weather likely to be around eastern coasts across the far southeast as well, where actually there'll be plenty of sunshine around through much of the day, but it is going to be feeling much chillier than of late, particularly in those brisk northwesterly winds. So quite a change of feel as we head into Thursday, but still plenty of showers around coasts, but lots of sunshine too. You'll just have to wrap up warm to enjoy it. Highs of around 7 to 8 Celsius in the south, but highs only reaching around 4 degrees in the far northeast of Scotland, so fairly chilly here. As we head into Friday, once again we'll see outbreaks of rain slowly push their way towards the southeast of the country, moving in from the northwest. Plenty of blustery showers behind this, but to the far north and far south of this rain, once again there should be plenty of dry weather around. Turning slightly milder as we head into Saturday, but another chilly spell for Sunday and remaining fairly unsettled for the weekend. Bye for now.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing.
With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that.
When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Very shortly, I'm going to reveal whether or not your local area will be affected by these train strikes over the festive period. But first, the government has been accused of betraying nearly 4 million WASPI women after they decided not to offer them compensation over the changes to the state pension. Now, Labour have repeatedly promised to support the women, but they instead announced yesterday that they will not be offering a single penny to them. The PM defended this decision. He was in the House of Commons earlier today.
And the simple fact of the matter is, in the current economic circumstances, the taxpayer can't bear the burden of tens of billions of pounds in compensation. Well, they're chuntering away. In 14 years, they accelerated the changes and not once spoke about compensation.
Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by a friend of the show, Christine Smith, from the WASPI Women's Group in Newcastle. Christine, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Do you feel as though Keir Starmer's lied his way into Downing Street and betrayed you?
He couldn't lie in Bed Street.
Right.
Simple as that. He's lying.
So you think he's lying? So look, on a serious note, though, you know, we've got Yvette Cooper, we've got Angela Rayner, we've got Keir Starmer, we've got Liz Kendall, who is the head of the Department for Work and Pensions, who've all said they would back you, and then they've come into power and they've not. How does that make you feel?
More than betrayed. And it seems to me they can't read a report. The evidence is there in the PHSO report. And they're going on about 90% of women knew about the change to the state pension. That is incorrect. The PHSO report on which our claim is based is 3 out of 5 women did not know the state pension age was changing. The 90% that cherry-picked is that 90% of women were aware there would be changes at some point to other women. And this lie needs to be challenged forcibly, and we will do that.
Yeah, because that is the point that they're trying to make. They are trying to claim that 90% of women were aware of this, and therefore you should have acted accordingly. But I mean, we spoke earlier on the phone, and you said that there are some areas in the UK where, as far as you're aware, the only way that some women were told was because there were posters put up in a local job centre. Well, I'm sorry, but unless you happen to be in the job centre, you weren't going to see it, were you? And also, as well, with respect, it was probably a time when, you know, smartphones and technology weren't as common as they are now. You wouldn't necessarily look online, and I don't think people should be expected to on a thing that affects your life to that extent. What would you say to people who say, Christine, look, we can't afford this, it's 10.5 billion quid, the country can't afford it?
You have an open checkbook for anybody else that wants it. Not like a Scotchman when he yawns. That's a Newcastle scene. You might need Darren to explain that to you. Anybody wants something? There's a checkbook. What would you like? It comes to a social injustice that is so important. We were challenged by government to prove maladministration had occurred. That wasn't our job to do. You had groups all over the country having raffles to raise funds, fundraising, to fight the government that is supposed to look after you. We had to do it ourselves. We proved that. We've taken them to court once and we'll do it again. They best not think that we are going away, because it isn't going to happen.
It's a very dangerous group of people to annoy this, I think. And it's going to smart a bit. So what kind of stuff are you thinking of doing? I mean, are we talking about protests here?
Well, we've done that, as you know, on budget day, and that was wholly ignored. We got some MPs. Now, MPs are supportive MPs. We have 6 Newcastle MPs who have already come out and said that they're going to defy the government. There were a group of MPs who met this morning cooking up a plan of what they're going to do about this, because I don't blame our local MPs. They have told me they had 45 minutes notice to this announcement. The management are not talking to the people on the ground. And they are as furious as we are.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
this is
we
it.
want them, you know, Starmer can't sack them all. If people power, if they band together and say we're not having it, we have 300 MPs supporting us in the House of Commons. The whole of the Labour Party, SNP, Green Party, Liberal Democrats, whole lot, DUP.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens, Christine. But look, we'll stay in touch, obviously. And I think you make a series of very, very good points there. And I do wish you all the very best. And it's a shame that, you know, you essentially were lied to about this by several different people who are now in positions of serious power. As Christine Smith there is from the WASPI Women's Group in Newcastle. Watch this space. Well, as we just heard, WASPI women are furious. They feel totally betrayed. They aren't the only ones. I'm going to be asking whether or not Keir Starmer has actually lied his way into Downing Street. That's at 10 p.m. I'm also going to bring you an exclusive interview now with the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, who had a heck of a lot to say.
It doesn't have to be like this. What we've got to do is get the career criminals, the people who are responsible for a vast amount of these crimes, and lock them up for longer.
Yeah, it's good that he sets out his plan to cut crime. But before all of that, prepare for travel chaos over the festive period. After Avanti West Coast train managers announced today they'll go on strike on New Year's Eve, is Labour to blame now for Brits' festive travel misery? Trade unionist Andy Twelves joins me live and next.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
There will actually be some hazardous weather across parts of southern Europe through the next few days, with a strong Mistral wind developing over southern France and into Corsica, leading gusts here of around 70 miles per hour and some hefty showers with that as well. Further east, and we have some heavy thunderstorms pushing across parts of Greece and into Turkey, and here we could see rainfall totals building up to around 200 millimetres. Elsewhere, there will be some fine weather around, with temperatures near or a little bit below average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year. Woo! Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
And there's that's a reminder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's the last year been like for you?
Winning it was I was not expecting to win. At any point until they said my name.
You're a very
it was a nice
guy.
surprise. No, I was
really
in touch with reality. I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that surely like an underdog. You on.
Yeah,
it
did.
Actually, I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also like kind of simultaneously my confidence improved at the same time, and then that like little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength.
Cake.
I think cake, typically if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know?
I attribute it to my nan.
Sweet.
But yeah, I would say, I think most people probably attribute it to like a grandparent or something that they maybe done with like their parents when they was growing up. So that's I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody all over the place, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Well, Brits are facing 5 more months of travel chaos after the RMT union announced today that Avanti West Coast train managers will strike again. They'll walk out on New Year's Eve and on the 2nd of January, heaping misery on Brits travelling up and down the country over the festive season. It comes after the union rejected an offer that would have resolved the dispute. I'm joined now by trade unionist Andy Twelves. Andy, thank you very, very much for joining us. I've just got here in front of me that it appears that your average train manager is on £41,150 a year. To do what?
Good to be here. Thank you for having me on, Patrick. They do a range of things. You know, when they say train manager, it makes it sound like some kind of glamorous job where you're stuck in an office. No, these are the guys that are on the trains. You know, they're collecting the tickets, they're opening the doors, They're making sure that the wheelchair users can get on the train. You know, they really are at the coalface when it comes to, you know, the rail industry. It's not someone sat in an office, you know, directing things. They are in the thick of it. And this dispute is about
Andy, they're on a train, mate.
Absolutely.
We get on trains every single day, right? I mean, the fact that I can't remember the last time I saw a train manager probably it suggests to me that £41,000 a year is just about enough.
Well, I think that probably speaks to the ability of Avanti West Coast to properly staff their trains more than anything. But you think about these staff, they're dealing with some pretty nasty behaviour. If you think about that London to Manchester line, that'll be one filled with people who are drunk, hen parties, football fans. Like, they're not going to have the finest behaviour to deal with. And Avanti West Coast want them to go in on their rest day, on the day that they're not working, for no extra pay, no overtime pay. And that's what this dispute is about. It's not about they want more money on their salary. They want more money to go in when they're not working.
So I've just, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I'm looking at some stats here. So up to 400 members of the RMT union are involved in the dispute, and 83% voted against a pay deal. So now, because of those 400 members, the entire Avanti West Coast line over New Year's Eve and the 2nd of January, which does London Euston to Manchester Piccadilly, Blackpool, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Birmingham, Holyhead, Wrexham and Liverpool, will close. Does that not seem a bit excessive?
I mean, I fear you might be giving Avanti West Coast a bit too much credit here. Even if the strikes weren't on, the trains would likely have never run. I mean, you know, even when there aren't strike days, I struggle to get from Manchester to London. Avanti West Coast aren't this gold standard service. This strike could easily be dealt with. The RMT have set out what they want from their members, and Avanti West Coast have refused to meet it. It's as simple as that.
Do you not think that there's a moral issue? I mean, where do these people get? A lot of the people who will be getting on trains desperate to get home or whatever around that time of year. There might be people who are working on Christmas Day and, you know, their Christmas is their New Year's Eve and all of that stuff. And they're quite possibly on less than 41 grand a year. The train ticket, by the way, from London Euston to Manchester Piccadilly, a journey that I used to take every single weekend before I started here at GB News, could easily set me back a couple of £100. I shudder to think what it is now, a few years on. So you're paying the same amount of money that you could probably fly to New York for to get on a train that might not turn up, and now the people who are managing that train, they're not turning up, so it's all stopped. I mean, hasn't Labour empowered these people, Andy, by giving into other unions and giving into other people and giving them whopping great big pay rises and just giving them the incentive to strike?
Well, I mean, I'd like to know who does your airline tickets. If you can get to New York for £200, that's pretty good, that. But I mean, in fairness, the RMT and the workers don't set the ticket prices. That is with the management of Avanti West Coast. And I mean, it's a good bit of rhetoric going, well, you know, Labour in charge now they're giving off to the unions. Think about the last 14 years. How many strikes were resolved? How many disputes went on? This isn't a Labour versus Tory government thing. There have always been trade union disputes. There have always been resolutions, no matter whether it was the coalition government, Tory government, Labour government. This isn't old Starmer's in, so it's fair game now.
Wasn't this?
Well, no, I don't think anyone did.
Well, I tell you what, I did when we borrowed a shed load. I did when we borrowed a shed load of money to pay off a load of other train drivers and union barons as well. I thought that maybe it might stop this kind of stuff. Maybe, shock horror, Andy, I might have been able to get home via train on New Year's Eve.
Well, it's worth pointing out the RMT aren't affiliated to the Labour Party. Actually, they actively disaffiliated earlier in the 2010s. They're not affiliated. The train drivers aren't the RMT. That's a different union. That's a different dispute. This is one specific thing. This is when Avanti West Coast want them to come in on their day off and they won't offer any extra pay. That's what this dispute's about. I think it's fair enough.
Oh, well, you see, tell that to the commuters. And anyway, look, good to see you, mate. Take care. See you soon. Andy 12's there.
Cheers,
trade unionist. Right, coming up at 10 p.m.
I've been joining them and fighting to try and get this changed. I think it's completely unfair, and I want to keep fighting for a fair deal for the WASPI women.
Lies, lies, lies. WASPI women are furious with this government, and they aren't the only ones. I've got a catalogue here of the times that Keir Starmer lied his way into Downing Street. We talk about that. I've got an exclusive interview with the Shadow Justice Minister, Robert Jenrick, as well, who sets out his plan now to cut crime. Stay tuned.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, we'll see cloud clearing the southeast, leaving a day of sunny spells and showers. It is going to be feeling much colder than it has done of late, though. To start off, though, to end on Wednesday, we'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain just move their way across the far south of the country. Colder to the far north, though, as we head into the evening. Still plenty of blustery showers reaching northwestern areas, a few feeding in inland at times where they'll likely fall as snow over high ground. But elsewhere, we'll see cloud outbreaks of rain slowly push their way towards the southeast and generally turning dry, but still with those showers just moving into parts of Wales and the southwest. And a very cold start to the day, particularly in those brisk northerly winds. So around across Scotland to start on Thursday. Still, we'll see plenty of showers around those coastal areas, and as they do move in further inland, they're likely to fall as snow across higher ground. Similar across Northern Ireland, still a chance we could see some wintry flurries around hilly areas and just to the northwest of England too. Even across Wales and parts of the southwest, a chance we could see some winteriness in the showers over hilly areas. The driest and brightest of the weather likely to be around eastern coasts across the far southeast as well, where actually there'll be plenty of sunshine around through much of the day, but it is going to be feeling much chillier than of late, particularly in those brisk northwesterly winds. So quite a change of feel as we head into Thursday, but still plenty of showers around coasts, but lots of sunshine too. You'll just have to wrap up warm to enjoy it. Highs of around 7 to 8 Celsius in the south, but highs only reaching around 4 degrees in the far northeast of Scotland, so fairly chilly here. As we head into Friday, once again we'll see outbreaks of rain slowly push their way towards the southeast of the country, moving in from the northwest. Plenty of blustery showers behind this, but to the far north and far south of this rain, once again there should be plenty of dry weather around. Turning slightly milder as we head into Saturday, but another chilly spell for Sunday and remaining fairly unsettled for the weekend. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
we've said we'll right that injustice, and within the 5 years of the Labour government, we will compensate them for the money that they've lost. This is their money that they've had stolen off them, and it's completely unacceptable.
I think it's completely unfair, and I want to keep fighting for a fair deal for the WASPI women.
she has changed her voice, hasn't she? Labour has betrayed the WASPI women.
A real injustice, and we need to do something about it, Carol, because that wasn't the base upon which you paid in. That wasn't the basis upon which you were working. We've got a government that has basically put its fingers in its ears.
Did Keir Starmer lie his way into Downing Street? Also,
تقوم في بلدية ويستمنستر حاليا بتغيير طريقة عمل الإسكان الاجتماعي. نهدف إلى جعل طريقة العمل أكثر شفافية ومساعدة الأشخاص الأكثر احتياجاً.
I was just thinking that. Labour advertises council houses for people who can't speak English. What an absolute joke that is. Also,
judges with our completely broken human rights laws have given this man a right to live in the UK.
I've got an exclusive interview with Shadow Justice Minister Robert Jebrick. A Turkish crime boss is the latest person to be allowed to stay in Britain because of the ECHR. And
It doesn't have to be like this. What we've got to do is get the career criminals, the people who are responsible for a vast amount of these crimes, and lock them up for longer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting this. So he puts forward his solution to stopping Britain's crime wave. Oh, and breaking tonight. Britain is now the Western capital for Sharia courts. We have 85 Sharia courts here in Britain. Is this just another example of failing integration? I'll be debating all of that, and I will have a very first look at tomorrow's front pages tonight with the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Oh, and please, can you try to tell me what you think happens next here? Get ready, Britain, here we go. Did Keir Starmer lie his way into Downing Street? Next.
Good evening, this is your 10 o'clock news. I'm Joe Casper, and these are the top stories from the GB Newsroom. So Keir Starmer has today held a call with US President-elect Donald Trump. The Prime Minister's spokesman said both men agreed on their joint ambition to strengthen the close and historic relationship between the UK and the US. Mr Starmer and Mr Trump reiterated the need for allies to stand together with Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. The Prime Minister also emphasised the importance of securing peace in the Middle East. Pleas of not guilty have been heard on behalf of Axel Rebranding after he failed to reply when arraigned at Liverpool Crown Court on 3 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder following the deaths of 3 young girls in a knife attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport. Rebranding appeared via video link in court as pleas of not guilty were entered to all 16 counts on the indictment. It comes as a police report published today found that officers were unprepared for the scale of the summer riots which followed the Southport attacks. The Prime Minister has been accused of playing politics with the WASPI women by the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch. So Keir Starmer is now facing pressure to give MPs a vote on the government's decision to rule out compensation for women affected by changes to the state pension age. He defended his position during Prime Minister questions earlier today.
And the simple fact of the matter is, in the current economic circumstances, the taxpayer can't bear the burden of tens of billions of pounds in compensation. Well, they're chuntering away. In 14 years, they accelerated the changes and not once spoke about compensation.
UK inflation has risen to its highest level since March, according to official figures. The Office for National Statistics said it increased to 2.6% in November, up from 2.3% the previous month. It is the highest rate since March and the second rise in 2 months. The figure comes ahead of the Bank of England's latest decision on interest rates tomorrow. The ONS's chief economist said that the rise was driven by an increase in petrol prices. And there's been some football action tonight in the EFL Cup. Arsenal beat fellow Londoners Crystal Palace 3-2, Newcastle won 3-1 against Brentford, and Southampton lost 2-1 to Premier League leaders Liverpool. Those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Joe Casper. More from me in an hour. Now let's get back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. Labour stand accused of lying their way into Downing Street. The party has been accused of betraying the WASPI women, despite using them to bash the Tories whilst in opposition. Here's Keir Starmer himself saying he'd back them.
Real injustice, and we need to do something about it, Carol, because that wasn't the base upon which you paid in. That wasn't the basis upon which you were working. We've got a government that has basically put its fingers in its ears.
Here's the Home Secretary in 2017.
Here with the 5 towns and Yorkshire WASPI women. They've been running a great campaign on behalf of women right across this area but across the country as well. They've been so badly treated by this Tory government. They've had their pension age increase, no proper warning. It's moving the goalposts when people can't plan. It's completely unfair. I've been and joining them and fighting to try and get this changed, I think it's completely unfair, and I want to keep fighting for a fair deal for the WASPI women.
She's changed her accent, hasn't she? Anyway, here's the Deputy Prime Minister in 2019.
You said we'll right that injustice, and within the 5 years of the Labour government, we will compensate them for the money that they've lost. This is their money that they've had stolen off them, and it's completely unacceptable.
And here's the Work and Pensions Secretary, Liz Kendall, pledging her support for them a few years ago. Well, all of that changed with this announcement.
The government does not believe paying a flat rate to all women at a cost of up to £10.5 billion would be a fair or proportionate use of taxpayers' money.
What happened? Nearly 4 million women will now not get compensation for missing out on thousands of pounds because the state pension age changed. Keir Starmer has tried to claim that 90% of WASPI women were aware that those changes were going to be made and should have seen it coming. Well, I don't think that's right. In March, the Parliamentary Ombudsman found that the Department for Work and Pensions had failed to properly communicate changes to the state pension age. I spoke to one WASPI woman earlier who said that she only found out about it because someone told her that there was a poster up in the local job centre. Well, what would she have been doing in there? Why would she have been in the job centre? Plenty of these women come from a generation that would not have looked online for information like this, and I don't think they could reasonably have been expected to. Rachel Reeves said that it would cost about £10.5 billion, and we don't have the money for this. Well, look. They campaigned on it in 2019. They have ignored the findings of the Parliamentary Ombudsman. They've found £22 billion for Ed Miliband's net zero green policies. They've found £11 billion for climate reparations for foreign countries, £500 million for foreign farmers, £60 million for Syria in the last week. I could go on. Labour have upset pensioners over the winter fuel payments. They've angered farmers. They've screwed small businesses about tax. Your energy bills are increasing. Rachel Reeves might have even lied on her CV. I suspect that Starmer's been a bit clever with the truth about a few other things as well, but time will tell. It just goes on and on and on. Now, if Starmer told you it was raining, you'd have to go outside and check, wouldn't you? Look, I get that £10.5 billion is a lot of money, and I get that a lot of people will be thinking, we don't have that cash. And indeed, I am inclined to agree with you. But what I do not like is the lies, and what I do not like is the fact that they've given them absolutely nothing. Nothing. And now they have upset the WASPI women. Mark my words, this will end very badly. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. I'm joined this evening by the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I've also got landlord and activist Adam Brooks and the broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Mark, it's about the lies for me. It's very on the nose, that.
It is about the lies, Patrick. My own view is, in fact, there probably isn't a particularly strong case for compensation. This has been litigated. The previous Conservative government won. But this is a political judgment, and the clips you've just played could not have been clearer. Could not have been clearer. They weren't saying, well, we'll have a look at the books and see if there's something modest we can do about it. It's been called an utter injustice, completely unacceptable. This is their money that's been stolen. I mean, if they believed any of those words, this should have gone right to the top of the queue. So unambiguous where the Labour Party stood on this. Could not really have used firmer, clearer language than they did. And the end result is they're going to do nothing. I'm afraid it brings all of politics into disrepute.
And this £10.5 billion figure, I get. It's a huge amount of money, and I am not sitting here saying we should splash all of that cash. But there's other ways you could do it, aren't there? Yeah. You could be quite clever here and actually give them something, I think.
Look, Labour have courted these women with false promises for votes. That's the only reason they've done that. They've bought their votes. And like with a lot of other false promises, it's all coming home to roost now. Keir Starmer is probably one of the biggest liars I've ever seen in the UK Parliament, and he's our Prime Minister. Look, going back to the...
That goes with Boris Johnson as well. I think that's a pretty strong statement.
You're right. We have not got £10 billion just to suddenly pay out all these women now. And that is down to Labour giving, £22 billion of our money to unproven climate technology. As you said, £11.6 billion on foreign climate projects. Keir Starmer called it an injustice. It's time we start putting our own injustices right rather than foreign ones. We are giving, as you said, £500 million to foreign farmers.
Yeah.
Yet he's attacking our own farmers. The priorities are all wrong. What they need to do is somehow compensate these women without giving them money.
Find a way of doing it.
So there is a way. Discount their council tax or
bus passes. or something.
Bus passes. Make sure
TV
they don't.
license.
Make sure they don't pay tax for the next 5 years,
Yeah.
10 years. There are ways of doing it that doesn't mean we just hand them money.
Be a bit clever about it. Now, Nina, the accusation there is that Keir Starmer is a massive liar. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. I think he's a man who's been caught out. It's always a jeopardy when you're in opposition to take up a cause that's going to bash the government. And the Labour Party did that. And now they've come in, they've found that they can't afford to pay. Part of this black hole is taken up, oddly enough, by compensation. There's the tainted blood scandal and the Horizon scandal. There's something like 11.8 million on the tainted blood, which the Tories had not bargained for or budgeted for in any way. They were there and sitting there and have to be paid. So they've came into power and they discovered that.
OK.
As far as I'm concerned, Keir Starmer is not the only person who has let the WASPI women down, if they have indeed been let down. They've been let down by, first of all, the Tory government. The first Tory government, I mean, I am all for equality, and it was right that the age the ages should have been balanced and brought, you know, because when I was...
You feel sorry. I mean, the reason I want to kind of zone in on you on this is with respect as a woman, right?
Yes, as a pensioner.
Yeah,
right.
well, OK, well, I didn't want to go down that route, but
no, it's
as
fine.
a woman, this is a person, because a lot of these WASPI women that I speak to, there were other circumstances in their lives from that generation. Maybe their husbands had a very, very hard manual job and sadly died younger. They certainly weren't planning on being at that work. Maybe it was the more quote-unquote traditional time where women spent a little bit more time at the home than arguably they might do now. So there are other factors here at play. I wonder if this is just really unfair to women of a certain age.
It is unfair. Of course it's unfair, and women have always had unfair treatment in the working place. When I was first started working, I was not allowed to join the pension fund because I was a woman. I did not get equal pay because I was a woman. When supposedly, when I reached pensionable age, I was 60 when I supposedly retired. I have not retired. I have kept working for the 18 years since then.
Well, good. It's a
and paying in tax. But of course, I do have enormous sympathy. But they've been let down. Starmer is not the only one to blame.
But the difference here is that the Conservative Party, at least on this issue, was clear what their position was. We're not going to pay compensation. We believe that the government has done enough to inform you. Now, you might disagree with that
position. But they didn't do enough to inform.
OK, but nevertheless, that was the clear position of the Conservative Party. You can disagree with it and vote against them. These top three Labour spokespeople could not have made it clearer what an overriding priority was.
I've
not a
said
problem that they might look into, something they'd try to fix if they can, a total injustice in which money had been stolen. Surely any reasonable person would say this is pretty much at the top of the Labour government's list.
I would blame the Tory government for leaving the budget in such a mess that there is not the money to pay. So don't blame Starmer.
It should have been the top priority.
But also, there wasn't enough information. That the information wasn't conveyed in the correct manner. And then when the coalition government came in, they accelerated. They accelerated the scheme.
Who saw those clips that Patrick's just played?
I agree.
I think would reasonably reach the conclusion that if I vote Labour, they are going to severely prioritise.
I agree with that.
And that is a betrayal.
And it's on that note, Adam, that I'll bring you back in here, because I think that's right. If I was a WASPI woman, I think I would have felt like I had to vote Labour. I think I would have had to.
It was their only hope.
Yeah, of course
that's what they're sitting there thinking. That's my only hope. If I vote them, I'm going to be better off.
Yeah, because the other lot are definitely not giving it.
And they're not.
So there you go. I think if I was a farmer at one point, I might have been quivered on the edge of voting Labour, because Keir Starmer gave it quite large about British farming.
Quite sensibly, they're voting Lib Dem now.
But even students, the Labour Party for years went on that they was going to abolish tuition fees. They've put them up. This Labour government...
Because the Tories...
stopped lying. This black hole is nonsense.
It's not
nonsense.
It is not.
Yeah,
it's
the
not.
The government's got a budget of north of £1 trillion.
It is not budget. They found...
22 billion's a rounding error.
But if he told you it was raining, you'd have to go outside and check.
Look, I make no bones. I cannot stand the man. I think Keir Starmer is going to go down as one of the worst prime ministers that we've ever had in this country. In just 6 months, his ratings are some of the lowest ever.
Judge him by what happens.
I haven't found one person that backs him.
Judge him by what happens. This is still early days. And this is a mistake, but a mistake. His hands are tied. Don't blame him. Blame
He's got a budget of over £1 trillion. And the job of politicians is to decide how to prioritise that money. You can't spend everything on everything, so you need to prioritise. And I think anyone listening to Starmer, Rayner and Cooper would have fairly concluded that this was going to be a very high priority within the government's budget of more than £1 trillion a year.
Yes, but he could still bring it back round, Nina?
I think he can. I think he can.
I think he's done.
The thing is, what you think about it and what I think about it doesn't matter. He's in for 5 years, and if he proves unpopular, Labour will get a new leader. But Labour are in for 5 years, and you just have to suck that up.
Get worse and worse.
All right, guys. Lovely start. Right, I'm enjoying tonight's show. Thank you very much. What else have I got? Oh, yeah, an exclusive Robert Jemerick very shortly, the Shadow Justice Minister. But before all of that, it's time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year. It's your chance to win £50,000 in cold, hard, tax-free cash. Here's how you can win.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I've got tomorrow's newspaper front pages very shortly. Some breaking news tonight as well. Britain has become the Western capital for Sharia courts, so well done, everyone. But first, I'll bring you my exclusive interview with the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jemerick.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Well, it's interesting because I haven't actually been told specifically what I've done, which has resulted in me being removed from my committee position, which was head of daytime. I started a podcast in September in which I interviewed Charlie Bentley-Astor, who's a detransitioner. I then also interviewed Graham Linehan, and I wrote an article for his Substack. And shortly after that, I was told that I had been suspended, and the university union started an investigation into me.
And that very quickly became apparent to me that it was an interrogation of my gender-critical views rather than any sort of misconduct that I had been alleged to.
Right.
And Graham Linehan has been outspoken on issues relating to transgender ism, whatever you want to call it, gender ideology. And so perhaps just by having associated yourself with him as a controversial figure, that was why the investigation happened, you suspect?
Yes, and already it's quite clear that guilt by association is a crime that you can commit within university societies. I actually purchased my free speech union membership way before this all happened, when a friend helped me edit the episode with Charlie, and he got in trouble with a separate society who told him that he must disassociate himself from me, and if he didn't, further measures would be taken. So at that point I thought, wow, I better put some damage control in place and purchase my membership in case anything happens to me.
So this decision is made by the student union, right? Is that made up of fellow students, or who's making this call?
Well, that's actually part of my appeal, so the process has been completely improper. They haven't followed their own guidelines. There are two different guidelines as to whether a complaint is dealt with the society itself, so Leeds Student Radio, or the union, and it's basically been a mishmash of both. So it's been an improper procedure, but it is, as far as I'm aware, it's the student union who's decided to remove me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Coming up, all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages and that breaking news tonight that Britain has become the Western capital for Sharia courts. 85 of them now. What on earth is going on? But first, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, has tonight slammed Britain's naive judges after it emerged that a Turkish crime boss, who's believed to be one of Britain's biggest drug dealers, can't be deported because of human rights laws. I also spoke to him. He basically laid out what his plan is to cut crime. So stay tuned right now. This is Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Minister. Here's what he had to say. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Jenrick. There's another ridiculous case doing the rounds. A Turkish crime boss, a drug lord, sentenced to 16 years in prison. We can't deport him. His right to a family life, despite the fact that he did marry another woman back home in Turkey, as well as the wife he has here. Another example of why we need to leave the ECHR, do you think?
Well, I do. Look, I think it's a sick joke, isn't it? Your viewers would be disgusted to read of this story. You know, this is somebody who's committed serious crime here. He's actually been back home multiple times on holiday and to get married, and yet naive judges with our completely broken human rights laws have given this man a right to live in the UK. You know my view. I feel we've got to change this completely because it is just letting down the British public. And I would challenge anyone who disagrees with me to come on your show and explain how these human rights laws, like the ECHR, are actually working in the interest of the British people, because clearly they're not.
Well, I would argue that as well. This is an interesting case involving the ECHR. I'm actually quite keen to talk to you about some of the more domestic stuff that's happening, as it were. Labour have been putting prisoners who they've released into hotels, and migrant hotels. Now we've got criminal hotels as well. But crime in general just feels like it's out of control, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that crime is out of control, that we're living through a crime wave, particularly for theft. You know, the authorities demean some crimes as low-level crimes, like shoplifting or having your mobile phone nicked. But these are things that have a real effect on all of us. You will have stories, I have stories. We all know victims of these crimes. And it doesn't have to be like this. We shouldn't live in a country where there is a view that this is just the new normal. It doesn't have to be like this. What we've got to do is get the career criminals, the people who are responsible for a vast amount of these crimes, and lock them up for longer. There's a shocking statistic, Patrick, that 1 in 10 criminals are responsible for 50% of all the crimes.
Wow.
And since 2007, 50,000 of these hyper-prolific or career criminals have been convicted of 50 crimes each and still not been sent down. So what we can do is, if we can get these people off our streets, into prison for longer, there is the chance to massively reduce crime rates, particularly for things like theft, the everyday crimes that are ruining communities. And this isn't rocket science, it's common sense. Most people know this, but yet in Westminster, it's not happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the people will be shouting at their TV screens now, going, well, this started under the Conservatives, didn't it? Why wasn't more done about that? And we were left, weren't we, with overflowing prisons. So it's all very well and good saying, well, let's lock people up for longer. Where are we going to put them?
Well, the last government did build more prison places than its predecessors, but I think we've got to build more prisons. I want to build them faster and cheaper than we have in recent years. You know, today it costs 700 grand for every cell in a new prison. There must be a better way to do it than that. We've also got to get the 10,500 foreign criminals out of our prisons and back home to their own countries. And I've said that we should be using every lever of the British state to put pressure on those other countries to take back their own criminals. You know, don't give them foreign aid. Stop granting visas to these countries. We are not a small and irrelevant country. We can be putting pressure on those countries to take back murderers and paedophiles and rapists, get them out of our prisons, free up places so we can get these career criminals off our streets and into prison. And then the other thing we've got to do is get the whole court system working properly, because since COVID, there's this massive backlog in cases, people who are in prison on remand, waiting to go to trial.
Let's talk about that, because justice needs to be seen to be done as well. People need to feel as though, so for victims of crime as well, that their perpetrator of their crime is going to find themselves in a court of law at some point relatively soon. And this did kind of start under lockdown, but also a bit before that as well, with the closing of several magistrates' courts, which did happen under the Conservatives. I believe David Cameron kind of initially set the ball rolling on that. So you want to see what? Nightingale courts, do you?
Yeah, so the lady who runs the judiciary, the Lady Chief Justice Baroness Carr, she said that there are 6,500 extra sitting days in which the courts could be sitting hearing cases in which they're not today. The Labour government have just said, well, they're going to increase the number of days by 2,000, but still means there's 4,500 days literally on the table waiting to go. And that's before you even do innovative things like Nightingale courts, having the courts sit 24/7. You remember during the riots earlier in the summer, well, the judiciary and the court system and the government were able to suddenly stand up courts late at night on a Sunday. Why aren't we doing that now? Because as you say, there are cases
for it though.
I think they would be. You know, why wouldn't they? This is a massive failure at the moment of government and civil service. We could be so much better than this. If somebody was raped today, their case probably wouldn't come to court until 2027 or 2028, by which time, you know, recollections will have, you know, drifted, people may have left the country, it's going to be much harder to get convictions, and that's just wrong, isn't it? That is a massive scandal in our country, and yet you've got courts that are sat empty. You know, you've got judges literally petitioning the government to sit for longer hours and for more days every year. We can fix this. It doesn't have to be this way. And if we can do all these things, then we can free up places in our prisons and we can get the career criminals off our streets and into jail.
So that's your basket of measures there. Again, I'll emphasise Labour saying that they've got these 2,000 extra sitting days. You make the point that there are 6,000 and odd that need to happen. We've spoken a lot about injustice there. There's another injustice that I think has taken place today, and it's the WASPI women, isn't it? Now, there is an economic case, absolutely, that Britain does not have £10 billion just going spare, and that we can't afford to give them exactly what they want. It's more about the lies, I think, is it not? From Labour, you've had Yvette Cooper, you've had Liz Kendall, who's actually in charge of this now, you've had Keir Starmer pledge his support, you've had a couple of others as well, previously say that they will back the WASPI women and essentially give them what they want. And then last night it emerged that that wouldn't happen. How do you feel about that? Because the Tories didn't give them what they wanted either, did they?
Look, you can argue the merits of the case, and I think they are arguable. You can make the argument, as you just have, and I think actually it's the right one, that there just isn't the billions and billions available to provide the kind of compensation that these women would wish. But the big issue to me beyond that is the dishonesty. The fact that some politicians were willing to explain the trade-offs, be honest with the public that this isn't possible, but yet pretty much everyone in the cabinet, including Keir Starmer, when they were in opposition, were having their photo taken with WASPI women, were tweeting, were going to rallies, were saying that they were going to fix this, that they were going to sort out this great injustice. Now they're in government, they've done precisely the opposite. And it's also a pattern with Keir Starmer. You know, this is a man who got elected as Labour leader on a set of promises, reneged on almost all of them when he's in office. And now, time and again, Rachel Reeves' budget, she's not going to raise taxes. She's just massively hiked taxes. You know, at every turn, they are telling lies. And I have not known a government that has lied and lied and lied in the way that this one has done in such a short period of time. It's massively harmful for trust in politics and in this government, because we're all left thinking, can we believe anything that Keir Starmer says?
Just on that, because there's a lot to go at here with Keir Starmer. You rattled off a few things. We do it regularly. I mean, we'll have just done, by the time this goes to air, we'll have just done a big segment on the WASPI women at 10 p.m. And I'll be making the point that I do think it is an injustice what's taking place here, as well as the lies. But it does strike me that Cammy Badenoch doesn't seem to be able to land much of a glove on Keir Starmer at PMQs, and you must be sitting there, what, thinking you could have done a bit of a better job, are you?
Well, I watched her today, and she was making the argument that I've just made, that this is a man who just doesn't seem like he's capable of telling the truth. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that is just immensely corrosive to trust in him, in the government. And then he's got sat next to him Rachel Reeves, you know, a Chancellor who stood at the general election really on a read my lips, no more tax rises manifesto, has done precisely the opposite. And if you can't trust a Chancellor, then that is very harmful, because you've got investors, you've got businesses, you've got farmers, you know, you've got people who rely on the word of the Chancellor, and that word doesn't seem to mean very much right now.
Just one last one on this issue of lying. Again, I know there'll be certain people shouting at their TV sets saying, well, what about the likes of Boris Johnson? If the Tories got a great track record when it comes to the truth, really?
Well, look, I would argue that these people have only been in power for 5 months, and yet their manifesto has already, you know, fallen to pieces. You know, we used to mock the Edstone, but I think we wish that, you know, maybe it wasn't such a bad idea after all, because every one of the manifesto pledges of this Labour government seems to have disappeared already.
Last time I checked, the Edstone is in a pub garden in Kensington. So there we go. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick. Good to see you.
All the very best. OK, so a Labour source told GBNews under the last Conservative government, justice delayed meant justice denied. They promised the court's backlog would fall, but we inherited record delays. Last year, they funded just 106,000 Crown Court sitting days, a cut on the year before. They said they've already funded 2,500, which is the highest levels in a decade, and they want swifter justice for victims. Coming up, the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, I've got that breaking story about Britain becoming the Sharia capital of the Western world. Fantastic. Well done, everyone. Oh, and what happens next here? You'll never guess. I'll reveal all in just a few seconds.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, we'll see cloud clearing the southeast, leaving a day of sunny spells and showers. It is going to be feeling much colder than it has done of late, though. To start off, though, to end on Wednesday, we'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain just move their way across the far south of the country. Colder to the far north, though, as we head into the evening. Still plenty of blustery showers reaching northwestern areas, a few feeding in inland at times where they'll likely fall as snow over high ground. But elsewhere, we'll see cloud outbreaks of rain slowly push their way towards the southeast and generally turning dry, but still with those showers just moving into parts of Wales and the southwest. And a very cold start to the day, particularly in those brisk northerly winds. So around across Scotland to start on Thursday, still we'll see plenty of showers around those coastal areas, and as they do move in further inland, they're likely to fall as snow across higher ground. Similar across Northern Ireland, still a chance we could see some wintry flurries around hilly areas and just to the northwest of England too. Even across Wales and parts of the southwest, a chance we could see some winteriness in the showers over hilly areas. The driest and brightest of the weather likely to be around eastern coasts across the far southeast as well, where actually there'll be plenty of sunshine around through much of the day, but it is going to be feeling much chillier than of late, particularly in those brisk northwesterly winds. So quite a change of feel as we head into Thursday, but still plenty of showers around coasts, but lots of sunshine too. You'll just have to wrap up warm to enjoy it. Highs of around 7 to 8 Celsius in the south, but highs only reaching around 4 degrees in the far northeast of Scotland, so fairly chilly here. As we head into Friday, once again, we'll see outbreaks of rain slowly push their way towards the southeast of the country, moving in from the northwest. Plenty of blustery showers behind this, but to the far north and far south of this rain, once again, there should be plenty of dry weather around. Turning slightly milder as we head into Saturday, but another chilly spell for Sunday and remaining fairly unsettled for the weekend. Bye for now.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's time now for the first look at tomorrow's front pages. So we start this round with the I paper. Pensions protest grows for Starmer after betrayal of WASPI women. We've spoken about that quite a lot tonight. The Independent, fury of WASPI women, as Prime Minister says, you knew about pension age. Can I also just say on the picture story is ex-Independent critic Grace Dent to replace BBC's Greg Wallace on MasterChef show. I'm sure Grace Dent is great. I've got no issue with Grace Dent. I always think in these situations when someone has previously been sacked over, what would you call them, sexual misconduct allegations or that cloud of stuff, it's interesting to see who they put in next, isn't it?
It's important to have a woman, I think.
And that's it.
Absolutely,
yeah.
But she's terrific. She's been a wonderful restaurant critic and she's done a lot on MasterChef, and good luck to her, I say.
Lovely stuff. All right, let's whiz ourselves on. The Mirror go. Footy fave Chris Kamara has come to the Mirror. So there we go. He's returning to TV. The Metro, 3 friends killed by laughing gas driver. He was 19 years old. He was doing laughing gas at the wheel and he killed 3 people. The Daily Telegraph, ECHR lets heroin kingpin stay in UK. Of course we do. We couldn't possibly send him back to Turkey, where he also happens to have another wife. The Times. The story at the top is the story we're going to be talking about. Britain revealed as Western capital for use of Sharia courts. Mark, what's going on here? 85 Sharia courts in Britain.
Yeah, we've got to be a bit careful about this. I've read the Times piece. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Sharia law can't, and even with these 85 courts, doesn't out-trump English law, right? So if people want to go and are voluntarily going through some sort of arbitration process, fine. But a Sharia court can't suddenly legalise polygamy. You can pretend you've got 4 wives if you want. You can probably go to some court and pretend that, you know, you've got married to your teddy bear or whatever. But I don't think it sticks in English law. So my concerns here would be, am I right on that? And I think I am. You can't just go through this court because you don't like English law. And frankly, if people want to, and as long as it's completely voluntary, find their own arbitration process, fine.
That's the issue, I think, which is that whether or not some of this is voluntary. For example, my understanding is that if you would like to get divorced under the Sharia court, you can go and you have to say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you 3 times, and that's it. And unfortunately, sometimes that can mean that the woman is left with absolutely nothing.
But how does that work in British law?
English law out-trumps that, I think.
Yeah, are they divorced in British law if that happens in that court or not?
I can't imagine that they are.
Another example is, well, no, I don't think they are, but it's a question of whether or not certain people want to live a separate life, right? So you've got 100,000 Islamic marriages are believed to have been conducted in Britain, many of which are not officially registered with the civil authorities. So one would imagine maybe there's something that goes on here, I don't know. But that's the kind of the separate existence within a society, isn't it?
It's about integration, isn't it? And look, as long as nothing in that court can affect our laws, You know, that's how it's got to stay. The point where, in the future, if someone tries to push for Sharia courts to have influence over our law, that's the problem, and that's when there will be a pushback.
Do you think this just demonstrates a desire, Nina, for there to be Sharia law in Britain, for there to be a concurrent legal system properly?
I don't. I honestly, I have no idea. None of us does. But I don't honestly think so. It's not like they want Sharia law to extend to the rest of society. That's just not on. I think this is just a hangover from the old country, as it were. The sort of thing, you know, you bring your customs and you bring your the food that you like to eat and your religion.
I'm just looking at some stats here. These were published by the Henry Jackson Society about a year or so ago. 32% of British Muslims favour the implementation of Sharia law, and the same number favour the declaration of Islam as the national religion. I mean, it doesn't scream integration, does it?
No, I think that, yeah, I mean, that's right. If you're worried about integration, then these sort of things, I think, exacerbate your concerns. Now, look, we don't want everybody to be completely uniform here. Nina's right. I have no, you know, I mean, in fact, my favourite dish is chicken madras. I'm very glad so many Indians have come over and cook it for me in restaurants up and down the country. So I think it can bring diversity to society. It just seems a bit of a worry, doesn't it? I can't quite put my finger on it, that you want a parallel legal system of some sort, and those statistics worry me as well. I would hope everybody who lives in Britain says unambiguously, I accept British law. I want to keep some of my own customs, but British law out-trumps
So apparently,
my own
it's all very well and good saying this will not out-trump British law. I suppose the question on that is whether or not you care about British law. And it clearly, certain elements of the Islamic community, as this report would suggest, do not, because polygamy is so normalised that an app for Muslims in England and Wales to create Islamic wills has a drop-down menu for men to say how many wives they have. The app, approved by a Sharia court, gives daughters half as much inheritance as their sons. So I suppose there is that question of, all right, we're all sitting here going, well, if it doesn't trump British law, it doesn't matter. Well, it might not matter to us because we bothered to adhere to British law. But if people aren't, then I suppose it is a problem.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I echo what Mark says. We've just got to keep an eye on this and make sure that it doesn't grow and grow and grow to the point where it is suddenly being debated in Parliament and more powers are given.
Yeah.
So it's one to watch.
And I think as the generations come and younger people, younger Muslims see the rest of society and how that works, there will be more integration, hopefully. I mean, it's like in any society.
But that's a really interesting point, that it is perfectly legal under English law to leave your daughter half as much as you leave your son. You're not under any obligation to leave your money equally to your children. But it's a pretty odd thing to do, isn't it? I think most indigenous British people would consider that a strange decision to make.
Yeah, but look at the aristocracy here. You know, only the first son inherits. Now, that's completely anachronistic. Look at the royal family. Princess Anne would have made a great queen. You know, I mean, that's just not.
All right, just to say something, I agree with you that I really hope, and it is the hope of, I think, everyone, really, that as we have first and second and third generation immigrants from all backgrounds in this country, that maybe there would be more of an assimilation with our views. That said,
Patrick, I respect everyone's religion and their religious beliefs, but other people's religious beliefs should never impact my life.
And that's what I'm trying to say, because, again, in this same report by the Henry Jackson Society, which does not make pretty reading for people who are, you know, absolutely pro-integration, extreme views, this is to do with Islam, extreme views were generally more likely to be found in the youngest age cohort of 18 to 34-year-olds, and amongst graduates of all ages, and British-born rather than foreign-born Muslims. So something is going wrong there. If we start to
social media, my guess.
Possibly. But the point, either way, is something's happening. But anyway, coming up, I will have a few more newspaper front pages for you, and I'll reveal all from that ridiculous clip that I played you earlier. So stay tuned.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun. Well, they're looking good then.
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
There will actually be some hazardous weather across parts of southern Europe through the next few days, with a strong Mistral wind developing over southern France and into Corsica, leading gusts here of around 70 miles per hour and some hefty showers with that as well. Further east, and we have some heavy thunderstorms pushing across parts of Greece and into Turkey, and here we could see rainfall totals building up to around 200 millimetres. Elsewhere, there will be some fine weather around, with temperatures near or a little bit below average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
A Jaguar has ditched its growling big cat logo as part of what can only be described as a woke rebrand. The badge that has been used for decades, look at it, beautiful, on the bonnets of luxury cars has been swapped for a curved geometric J badge. They've also released a brand new advert, look at it, for their rebrand, which prompted Elon Musk to ask if the company actually sold cars. I thought this was a wind-up. It's not, it's true. Joining me now to discuss this is the motoring journalist Amanda Stratton. Amanda, what on earth is going on at Jaguar? The car of James Bond, Batman, Arthur Daley has gone off the scale woke. Please make me make sense of it.
The E-Type is an absolutely iconic car, and it's important that people remember that, in fact, in its heyday, Jaguar was an incredibly prestigious brand, more so really than other British brands like Aston Martin, for example. You know, people in the industry are left sort of scratching their heads because you need to do something bold, you need to do something that catches people's attention, but you also need to stay true to who you are and what you are, and I'm not sure that this is it.
Amanda, that could be an advert for anything. It could be cat food. It could be Karl Lagerfeld. It could be literally anything apart from a Jag. Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, OK, we're talking about it. So we are talking about it, but we're not talking about it for the right reasons, are we?
And I think if I was going to be speculative here, I would like to think that this is actually all part of a cunning plan to get everybody talking about it. So when they do launch the first new car that we're going to see, which, you know, people have been waiting, as I say, since 2001.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Got a couple more front pages for you here. Daily Express, Prince Andrew frozen out of royal Christmas lunch. King's brother will stay away. Forgive me, I think that's a bit of an old story that now. But anyway, The Guardian. PM told to tighten rules on party donation amid fears over Musk. So, you know, Elon Musk could be donating, and apparently that means now that we have to change the rules for absolutely everybody. So there we go. But I thought I would just bring you a little clip that absolutely cracked me up earlier. So it's nearly Christmas, and children across the country will be desperate to play with their new presents. Just like this young Harry Potter fan, whose short Quidditch career ended in a blaze of glory. I think it might have actually been wicked, but given the reviews to that film, perhaps that is actually live footage from their after party. But anyway, there we go. I'm going to go to Greatest Britain Union Jackass now. Greatest Britain, please, Mark.
Greatest Britain is a man called Martin Gaunt. He is the shop owner of a shop called Happy Piranha in Truro. He has carried out 50 citizens' arrests in the last 2 years for shoplifters. The police are too busy, worrying about whether you said something racist on Twitter. He's doing it himself. Good on him. You know, I sometimes worry about taking the law into your own hands, but you have a legal right to do this, and I wish more people would do this if the police are not stepping up. Better if the police did step up, but in the meantime, what a hero. Martin Gaunt of Happy Piranha, Truro, Cornwall.
Well, very brave. You go.
My nomination is Reform UK for being the only party that seems to be listening to us at the moment and airing our grievances in Parliament. Keep going.
OK, all right, Nina, go on.
Mine is Prince Harry. comes from the most dysfunctional family we know in this country, for creating his own loving family, as witnessed by the picture of him on his Christmas card with his arms outstretched to greet his daughter. It was very joyous and very reminiscent of that lovely picture of Diana. And I think he's truly Diana's son.
Oh, OK, all right. I am going to go for, what's he called?
Martin Gaughan.
Martin Gaughan, who owns the Happy Piranha
store in Truro.
In Truro.
What a legend.
So well done if you're watching. Who's your Union Jackass, please?
The City Council in my beloved city of Southampton nearly went bust in February. They've now decided that they're going to spend, they just have spent £80,000 on a new logo. The new logo is terrible. It's in blue. It should be in red and white. Those are Southampton colours. But the leader of the council has described this as excellent value for money and it will unlock billions in investment. She could only have got that advice from Rachel from Complaints, I think.
Yeah, that is
What a waste of money.
What a waste of money. Anyway, go
80
on.
grand.
My nomination is Keir Starmer for the lies, the broken promises, and the fact that we're going to have him for about another 4 or 5 years. Will he last? I'm not sure he will.
We'll have to wait and see, won't we, Nina? Go on.
George Carey, revered former Archbishop of Canterbury, who has just stepped down from the Church of England for concealing and colluding over 20 years to protect a bishop who sexually abused men and boys.
Another one.
The hypocrisy of this so-called man of God is breathtaking, utterly repellent.
Another one.
Oh, yes, but the former, you know, the revered George Carey, Archbishop of Canterbury.
Can you make
He's just stepped down.
Yeah, I can actually, because we did a segment last week, I think, on the Archbishop of York.
Yeah, he's not stepped down yet.
Who's not stepped down. Obviously not alleged to have committed anything himself, physically. But yeah, it's this similar theme of not reporting stuff. Yeah, go on, have it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Southampton's losing streak continues.
Yeah, you were sitting on that one for a while, weren't you? OK, I'm going to whiz over now to headliners presented this evening by Simon Evans. Simon, what have you got on your show tonight, then?
Good evening, Patrick. We've got a cornucopia of news as ever. We have the ECHR lets heroin kingpin stays in the UK. That surely must do for this unpopular body of law. The UK soldiers poised to train troops in Ukraine. We have cowardly lion of Damascus, Assad, and his latest nefarious behaviour. The more I hear about that man, the less I like him. That's all coming up.
Great stuff, Simon. Fantastic. Hey, Headliners is always a tremendous watch. It's the perfect way to round off your evening, so make sure that you keep it GB News for the next hour. And I'd like to say a big thank you to my panel. I've thoroughly enjoyed it tonight. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to everyone who's watched and listened at home. But, you know, I was thinking earlier on, we don't like to hold back here at GB News. We're happy to give the people what they want. And people in large numbers have been buying a Christmas single. And that Christmas single is called Freezing This Christmas, and it's by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. Now, it's in the charts. It's been at the top of the iTunes chart for a while now. The BBC have refused to play it. Apparently, Global have refused to play it. I think they own things like Heart Radio, Heart FM. They've refused to put it in the charts. They've just played a little snippet, ignored anything to do with anything political at all. I find that staggering, but clearly people are going out there and they're buying this song. And wouldn't it be a shame if someone on national television just played it for you right now?
We'll be freezing this Christmas without fuel at home. It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
She told me that she doesn't get out of bed till midday because she didn't want to.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, we'll see cloud clearing the southeast, leaving a day of sunny spells and showers. It is going to be feeling much colder than it has done of late, though. To start off, though, to end on Wednesday, we'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain just move their way across the far south of the country. Colder to the far north, though, as we head into the evening. Still plenty of blustery showers reaching northwestern areas, a few feeding in inland at times where they'll likely fall as snow over high ground. But elsewhere, we'll see cloud outbreaks of rain slowly push their way towards the southeast and generally turning dry, but still with those showers just moving into parts of Wales and the southwest. And a very cold start to the day, particularly in those brisk northerly winds. So round across Scotland to start on Thursday. Still, we'll see plenty of showers around those coastal areas, and as they do move in further inland, they're likely to fall as snow across higher ground. Similar across Northern Ireland, still a chance we could see some wintry flurries around hilly areas and just to the northwest of England too. Even across Wales and parts of the southwest, a chance we could see some wintriness in the showers over hilly areas. The driest and brightest of the weather likely to be around eastern coasts across the far southeast as well, where actually there'll be plenty of sunshine around through much of the day, but it is going to be feeling much chillier than of late, particularly in those brisk northwesterly winds. So quite a change of feel as we head into Thursday, but still plenty of showers around coasts, but lots of sunshine too. You'll just have to wrap up warm to enjoy it. Highs of around 7 to 8 Celsius in the south, but highs only reaching around 4 degrees in the far northeast of Scotland, so fairly chilly here. As we head into Friday, once again we'll see outbreaks of rain slowly push their way towards the southeast of the country, moving in from the northwest. Plenty of blustery showers behind this, but to the far north and far south of this rain, once again there should be plenty of dry weather around. Turning slightly milder as we head into Saturday, but another chilly spell for Sunday and remaining fairly unsettled for the weekend. Bye for now.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco